Yes, and welcome to Vasilis Garden, folks. Today's topic, top 5 things to look out for when growing tomatoes. We're going to start in here. We've got the little hothouse going. We've got our tomatoes in the pots. Now, one of the most common problems that occur is yellowing of the leaves. And I'm going to take this one here off. And I should stipulate that when you do prune your plants back, always prune them when it's a nice warm day. It's not warm enough at the moment, and I shouldn't have done that. But I did it for you. See the yellowing there? That could be from excessive water and not enough nutrient release in the soil, or simply that's an old leaf and the plant's discarding it and moving up to the top section. So look out for yellowing of the leaves and check your soil if it's too wet or malnourished. This soil isn't hungry. It's full of good stuff, all the organic stuff I put in it. Second one, dense bushy plants, and when it's too dense, it's perfect hiding space for all the insects. And we're talking about the pests like whitefly, aphids, caterpillars, snails and slugs. So you need to thin them out, but again, don't do it when it's too cold. And you know why you shouldn't be pruning your plants when it's too cold? Is because the sap flow won't heal the plant properly. It's not hot enough for it to heal. So wait till the temperature gets over 23, 24 this weekend, and then you can go out there and prune your plants. So thin them out, get better airflow, because without the good airflow comes topic number 3, disease. Now have a look at this little baby here, self-germinated volunteer. It's growing here amongst the spring onions, the parsley, the celery. It's getting very little light. And what it's developed here now is Septoria leaf spot. This is something that I've been seeing in lots of emails and messages coming through. A lot of people are experiencing this problem. It is from the excessive moisture in the ground, not enough good airflow, and moisture traveling all over the plant or being sprinkled all over the plant. So when you wet your leaves on your tomato plants, this will develop on it, Septoria leaf spot, and it does spread quite quickly, folks. So if you're handling your plant like this, these spores that are minute, you can't see it, but with the naked eye, will spread onto other parts of the plant. So wash your hands before you go from one diseased plant to a nice, healthy, clean plant. And when it gets like that, remove the leaves. Now, it can get actually a lot worse than this. It can get to the point where this marking becomes a black blotch on your stem of your tomato plant. If you see that happening on your tomatoes, you'll need to cut them down below where the marks are, the black blotches or the water marks are. Get rid of those, because that will continue to spread through the growing parts of the plant, and your plant long term won't produce really well. It'll actually go backwards and give you very little fruit, or probably die before it even gets there. Sad days, huh? Wind damage is also another major factor that can affect your tomato plants, and this one here has copped a little bit on the lower leaves. I'm not sure if you can see that because the lighting's pretty average now at this time of the day. You get a little bit of cupping on the ends, a little bit of burning on the ends, and that may look like excessive nitrogen release in the soil, but I can guarantee you this soil hasn't got anything like that. That sort of blotching going on, or sort of really rough looking edge, that is wind damage, and tip burning like that as well. So that is not a disease, but rather a damage caused by the environment, so the microclimate. And another example, here's another one here. Let's have a look at the cucumber while we're here. The same thing there, that can develop into a viral problem, a disease which can actually spread. It becomes angular leaf spot, becomes mildew, but again, that was caused by the weather because it was in a closed environment. And the way to know whether your plant's got a disease or not, especially with Septoria leaf spot, because it starts off one part of the plant, but it can spread quite rapidly around the rest of the plant. Look at the top parts of your plant, the parts that have actually acclimatized to that area that you're growing in. Those new growths that you see, or the new leaves that are developing on there, will indicate whether the plant's content to where it is or it's still struggling. So if you see any damage on the new growth, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with this little baby, so if you see any damage, then you know that your plant's got something going wrong internally, whether it starts from the soil up. And the soil, well, we know about soil. It needs to breathe well. It needs to have all the life in it, the organic matter, but it also needs to have the moisture and the airflow. That combination of composting is what we're doing, is what you need to make sure your garden beds are doing that well. If you're making your own compost, get a pH meter, test it to make sure that it's not too acidic and not way too alkaline, and make sure you've got a lot of texture in it. We blend our own, we make our own, and you can see the proof's in the pudding. And let's go check out my big babies. Check out these beauties, eh? You know why I do that. These are my big Malakas, and look at the size of the leaves on these. There's my hand there. Look at the cluster of flowers there. Over here, we have got bunches upon bunches going on. This is what we talk about, 3 stems. And I've established that here just above the pot line, because I'm going to fill the bottom of the pot with extra soil. So this is a side note for those who want to develop strong, healthy roots. topping up the soil and covering more parts of the lower part of the stem will develop bigger roots and stronger and healthier roots, which means the plant in turn will grow bigger, stronger and healthier as well. Not a single blemish on these leaves because we do not water above and we keep the water to a minimum. Now we've got a hot weekend coming up. They'll get a nice top up early in the morning, but we get the hose really close down below and hydrate it just in the root zone. Then we turn it off and we pull it out so we don't splash water anywhere, because our water has all sorts of impurities going in it. It's not rainwater, which may not have, well, have some impurities as well. You know, I nearly swallowed my tongue talking about that, but nevertheless, when you water with a house water or town water, keep it away from the foliage of your plants. Now, the topic for number 5 is sudden wilt. You may go out on a hot day and look at your plant and say it's great in the morning, then by midday it is wilting down all the way. You go to hydrate it, it starts to lift up, but it never gets back to its full glory again. But then when the sun sets and the temperature drops, the plant rises again. So what's happening there? Well, the most common cause of that, well, there's a couple actually. One is stem borer, and that is a little grub that gets into the stem of the plant and it inserts itself just below the surface of the soil. That's where the entry point is, and it burrows through the middle of the plant. So as the plant starts to grow, the borer will bore its way through further up, and the more it bores through, the quicker or the more wilt that starts to develop, and the harder it takes for the plant to recover, the less likelihood it will actually recover. You won't know that's the problem until you dig out that plant. Now when I say wilt, it's not just a little bit of a wilt like that. The entire plant, tips and all, will basically droop right down like it's been completely dehydrated, and you can sit there and pump the water, and which is great for the plant to rehydrate it, but as long as the borer is inside, you've got no chance of saving that plant. So out that has to go and put a new one back in place. Now, how do you treat that borer in the soil? Well, hopefully it doesn't come back there again. Now, the other problem that's becoming a major pest in the garden, and this is a second reason to why you get wilt in there, is because we have witchetty grubs. Well, I call them that, but they're actually called curl grubs or lawn grubs. They're a white curled-like grub the size of my finger there with a little brown or black head on it. Now that likes to eat on the root system or off the root system of all types of vegetables in the garden, not just tomatoes, but when it does eat those roots, what happens? You've got a big plant, small roots, not enough moisture getting in there, plant starts to wilt. Now that's a major problem as well. Now how do you treat that? It's almost impossible to treat it while you've got a garden going, active garden. You need to treat both the grub, the stem borer and the curl grub whilst the changeover goes on in the intermediate or the dormant season when there are no plants in the garden. So those two things we can talk about later on how to treat them, but for now what you've got to do is go out there and monitor your plants to make sure if there is a wilt going on, inspect closely, dig around the base of the stem and see if you've got any sort of discoloration going on there, or if the stem looks like it's actually a little bit soft, because chances are there's an actual borer that's entered in there, and it's a tiny one as well, folks. So the last one as a wilt can be Fusarium wilt or Verticillium wilt. Now those two viruses, if they are in your garden, they actually not only wilt, but your plants, the foliage completely discolors as well. You get a lot of browning off going on, a lot of angular leaf spots as well, a lot of dieback happening. Now that virus is virtually impossible to control in one season, in any one season. What you need to do there is send us photos of those problems so that we can carefully monitor that and evaluate it or analyse it for you to confirm whether or not it is a problem of that nature. And most times you need to actually test your soil as well. And if that problem does exist in your garden bed, you'll have to skip the entire season, and we're talking about tomato growing season, from growing in your bed. So you'll have to leave that at least 1 or 2 years of growing, and that way you can actually grow them in the pot and get bigger and taller like I am. Have a look at this little beauty. Now that's a cutting from one of these plants here. Stuck it in the ground, left only the one leaf, and actually we might just pinch that one off as well. And hopefully, no, not hopefully, I know it's gonna grow. We'll come back and monitor that, just like these ones over here. So let's break this down, folks. Start with your soil. Check your soil, make sure you've got the drainage, lots of good organic matter, and if you haven't, you can still top it up to provide the vital nutrients that your plants need. Not just tomatoes, cucumbers and everything else you're growing in your garden, including flowers. And then from there, work your way up. If your plant needs to be pruned, thin it out a little bit to get good airflow in it. Avoid wetting the plants from above, keep it nice and dry, and make sure you only water down below where the soil is, and only around the root ball, and avoid wetting the stem as much as possible. simple. If you're seeing disease, start pruning it off completely. Wash your tools between prunes. That's going from one plant to the other. Wash your hands as well if you need to. And if you start to see wilting occurring, have a close look at the bottom of the stem and look at the foliage as well to see if there's any discoloration. If you've got an insect or a bug that's gone inside, you're going to have to treat it straight away. Don't ignore it. Either cut it out, and that's the first point of reference, an action that you should always do. Prune out the dead, disease, damage, wood, plant, foliage, insect attack, whatever else is going on. And if that's not enough, then you may have to rip it out. But if you have to spray your plants, never spray them when there are flowers or the clusters of flowers. Cup them over so that you can spray around it. And why I say cup them over, because you don't want to damage the flowers and avoid it setting fruit, the pollination. So they're the basics of what you need to do with your garden. And if it's nice and healthy like that, send us a photo. You send me all the ugly ones. I want to see some nice garden photos too as well, folks. So I'll be happy to solve as many problems as I can, as I possibly can, but I'd love to see some of your wonderful successes as well, just like these little beauties. Now these tomatoes have got the tomato peg at the bottom, 3 strings. That's my method. All these wonderful products, folks, are available on our website, vasilisgarden.com, where you'll find everything you need for your garden. Plus, we got a wonderful Christmas hamper that we're giving away this Christmas. It's valued at $500, full of garden goodies for your plants to enjoy so that you get to enjoy the benefits. All you need to do is either be a VIP member, which means you already go into the draw, or subscribe by the 24th, or shop online. T's and C's apply. So folks, good luck with that one there. And by the way, I'm going to be at the garden centre this weekend with lots of wonderful produce that I just simply can't eat. So I'm going to be taking down a fair few, a lot of greens there, and putting them available to everybody to come down and shop for themselves to enjoy. I'll give you more information about that tomorrow. Until then, from me, Vasily, Maresi.